Hello everyone, and welcome back to the part 2 of this full tutorial for the MD-80. So we're ready at stand, we're ready to push back. So we're just gonna get going from here. Now we're ready to start. At this point we check that the air conditioning supply switches are off. Again, we said we have the pressure. Pneumatic pressure, we have it. So for transponder we set it as required to transponder, and that's it. We see what happens, as we said, with the hydraulic pumps off. Now let's begin the pushback. Just release the parking brake.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
And we're ready to start the engines. So go up on the overhead. We start engine left, the left engine first. So open the guard, press down, keep it there for a second. We see left start valve open, which comes up here, and we can see here that the N2 of the left engine is spooling up. We wait for minimum motoring, which is above 20-21, to ignite and to open the fuel valve. We don't do it before because then you could have a hot start and it would be very bad. It's not simulated, you don't do any damage to the engine here. You can do it, but there we go. We are at 21 and the fuel goes in and it's pulling up. Check the instruments. You see the EGT is rising now, the N1 is rising. We have already enough N2 for the generator, and you've seen that switching of the electrical power onto the engine generator. So once that has happened, you can do the rest. So check that you need the left engine anti-ice. You do it after starting every single engine, you do it, not when you started them both. So engine anti-ice, we don't need it today, so that's off. We check that the generator is on, so you see the generator oil temperature is rising, so the left one is on. You can see the right one is still off. Then you check the air conditioning supplied, so we can put it to auto. So just to show you here, earlier we put it to aircon here, HP bleed off. For flight we put it to auto. It's an automatic. What happens if you have an engine failure? This system automatically shuts the aircon to leave more bleed air to the remaining engine so it can perform better. And so this one goes to auto. We check the engine instruments, everything is over here, everything is as we need it, and then we close the relevant pneumatic feed, cross feed valve. So the left one goes off. Now we'll see if we can put the parking brake, and that's what I was telling you. We didn't have any pressure here, and that means that you cannot use the brakes. So if you have, I don't know why it happens, sometimes the pressure starts at 3, so you're good. You don't need to use the hydraulic pumps. Sometimes it's on 0, which shouldn't be. There should be pressure residual there. But anyway, if you cannot put the parking brake on, it means that you don't have hydraulic pressure. So you come here, you set the hydraulic pressures, hydraulic pumps over here, set them to high. There we go. At that point you can see you have pressure. So you can set the parking brake. There we go.
Disconnecting tow, stand by.
So engine number 1 is started. We turn it, we close the switch and we start the right engine. You can see here, right start valve open. N2 is rising. There you go, 21, fuel in.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal will be on the right. We'll see you next time and have a great flight.
There we got 58%. So the power transfer has happened while we were fooling around that side. So the engine anti-ice, we don't need it. We have the generator working, and we have the aircon supply to auto, and then we turn off the right crossfeed valve, and we're good to go at this point. Guard the switch. We can put ignition to off, APU bus switches to off, APU air off, APU switch itself off. And then we have the checking in the aircon, we put it to auto. The hydraulic pumps, we have the hydraulic pumps on high. And for takeoff and landing, we need the trans and the auxiliary pump on as well. Just a brief explanation of that so you understand how it works. Sorry, can I bring that up? Pneumatics, no, hydraulics. There we go. So you have two systems, the right hydraulic system and the left hydraulic system, driven by the relevant engine, so left and right. Now the right system takes care of landing gear, right nose wheel, steering cylinder, and etc. These bits. The left takes care of this, and both together take care of the important ones: slats, flaps, elevators, and etc. Now, if you were to have one failing, so right engine failure, you wouldn't be able to use these things. Transfer pump, putting it on, means that then the pressure from the right engine can transfer to the left engine one. But at that point, you will have half the pressure in both systems, which is not particularly good. So you need an electric motor, so an auxiliary hydraulic pump, to inject more pressure. And so you need the trans and the auxiliary and the trans pumps on takeoff and arrival when you need these things more. Okay, and that's it. So we check those are on. Flaps we set for takeoff, we said it was going to be flaps 11. So we set the flaps down 2 notches. One takes the slats out and the second notch takes the flaps out. You can see the disagree yellow light, it means the flaps lever disagrees with the indicator, that's because it's moving. And the blue takeoff is the slats are extended to take off. Disagree lights goes off, you have 11 here, 11 here, and you're good. We check the flight controls, we have no screens where you can see that. The only thing you see that when you push forward, you have elevator here. Elevator power on, that's neutral. When you push it back, it doesn't come up. And when you use your spoiler, so you do full left, you have spoilers deployed. And so just to show you, and what is the yoke? So full left, you see spoilers deployed, and full right, spoilers deployed again. That's the indication that your flight controls are good and working. At this point, we do after start checklist. The checklist, you need to forgive me, the checklist, normal checklist I have is from an MD-80. So it's not totally relevant. There are a few items that are not there because it's an MD-80, not an MD-88, but it's mostly good. So we do our after start. We're not gonna do, I didn't do the pre-start checklist because it's 66 items. It was already an hour long, the cold and dark. So after start normal checklist, air conditioning APU is auto and set. Wing heaters, we don't have them, so we don't talk about those. Electrical power is checked, we have it. Hydraulic pressure and pumps, we have it, we just checked it. Flight controls checked. Ice protection and fuel heat, we have what we need. We don't need the airfoil, we definitely don't need the fuel heat. We have pneumatic crossfeed is set closed as we need it. Annunciator panel and light checked. We have only the rudder travel unrestricted as we expect. Clear signal and lights. We received the clear signal, and we can turn. So we're asking for taxi. We can turn the light, the nose light to dim, which is your taxi light. And flaps and slats are set and checked. 11 and takeoff indicated here. Cabin report received, and FDA switch. The FD switches are on, and the after start checklist is complete. At this point, we arm the spoilers up, set the auto brake to take off down, and we arm it. and the taxi lights go to dim. There they are. We check the takeoff warning, so we release the parking brake first, and then advance the throttles and quickly retard them. So we didn't hear any takeoff warning, so we're good with brakes, flaps and slats and stabilizer. Perfect. To start the takeoff roll, I was surprised the FCOM says you need to advance up to 65% of N1 and then retard it to idle. We turning here? Are we turning there? Believe me or not, runway 10 is very rare to use because normally the wind is the other way around. There we go. There is no ground speed. Apparently, you cannot know your ground speed. There will be on the PFD ground speed over here, but it comes up, apparently, in reality as well, only above 10,000 feet. There's no other indication of your ground speed. So don't ask me how you're meant to respect the taxi speed, because I still haven't been able to figure it out, apart from cheating and, of course, bringing the overlay from Explain. We'll do what looks reasonable. As you taxi, we're checking the brake temperature. That is below 200. That's only, of course, if you've done a turnaround. And then we'll ask our lovely cabin crew to prepare the cabin. So flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for departure. Okay, we need to taxi on Alpha, which is this one here to the right. And on the straight we can do our taxi checklist. There we go, so taxi checklist down to the line. Flight instruments checked, nav aids and flight guidance, it's all set. Takeoff rating and EPR bags is set. 1.94, the EPR limit. Transponder set. We just need to switch it closer to the runway wing heater lights. That's the one we don't have modeled, it will be here in reality. And the brake temperature is checked. To 1 minute warning. So at this point we can set the weather radar. So we just turn the knob over here, a couple of notches to weather radar and TCAS, and that's good to go. Transponder, we can switch it to TARA. There we go, TA and TRA. We would put the ignition selector to AOB before leaving. And we're good. This is the Aerosoft scenery for Genova, and it adds a lot of the city and the harbour, and the airport is beautiful, really worth it. Really, really nice. Course will take full length. Let's finish the taxi checklist. Cabin crew warned. Spoilers are armed. We can see the red bit. Auto brakes, takeoff and armed. Takeoff data has been checked. The speeds over here we have just checking takeoff 100, the initial altitude, 43 is the takeoff flex. Elevator control check, that's not something that I found on the 88, but I probably could refer to this one. No, because that's rather, I don't know. No, that doesn't, I couldn't find it for the MD-88. And the taxi checklist is completed. Let's try and take as much length as we can. The lights can come on now. Landing lights on, nose light too bright. And we're good to go. As we said, we're departing from runway 10, which makes sense with what we see on the PFD. And we will be doing a straight turn to the right. Now, one quick thing. Oh, we have a speed restriction there, but I don't want to gamble. I'm experiencing some stutter with OBS recording. I have no idea why it's happening. I had it, I installed it, I sorted it, and now it's back. It's very annoying. I'll stop here on the runway and try and see if I can sort that out for a second. There we go. Stop on the runway and we are ready to go. And I'm back. You didn't know I was gone, but I was for nearly half a day to try and solve this problem with the stutter with OBS. Might not be 100% good, but well. Let's try and go. So we said that we were ready to take off. So what we're going to do, we're going to advance the thrust levers to 80% N1 or 1.4 EPR. Then we're going to press, when it's stable, the engine is stable, we're going to press activate the auto throttle. The auto throttle will take over, and then we'll do our takeoff run, and I'll do relevant calls there. Okay, so the parking brake is off. Let's do this. Let's get going. Auto throttle on. Auto throttle on. EPR 1.94, and it matches what's written here. Keep the center line. This is EPR 44 here. It turns into clamp, which is good. 80 knots. Engine instruments checked. Holding the thrust setting. Ooh, big stutter there. Let's see, V1, VR, we start rotating not more than 8 degrees at the beginning, just to lift off, to avoid state strike, and then we continue on to the flight directors. Positive rate, gear up. Onto the flight directors, we try and trim onto the flight directors. At 400 feet, we select the lateral mode, so in this case we press nav, and we see nav track coming up here. Then we wait for 1,000 feet to activate autopilot and the vertical mode. As we said, normally would be VNAV, but in this case we'll use ESMAC. So 1,000 feet, we activate the autopilot here, on. We press climb, so we derate the thrust, but the thrust is now climb. And then we set ESMAC. What would normally be the vertical speed box here will be speed. So in this case we increase only to 185 to make the turn and comply with the restriction. This is the flap retraction, so we retract the flaps, but we leave the slats, so we retract only one. The flaps are going up, the slats remain in takeoff. As we said, it's 208 the speed to retract the slat. So we're going up, we set climb so we can switch off, well, put actually back to auto the ART. And we see we've done the turn, so once we're out of the turn, we can then set a higher speed. I wouldn't go from 180 straight to VNAV, again it might pitch up a bit too fast, so let's do gradually. Let's start to increase. Turn is gone, okay, let's set something like 230. We're still in ES, nav track, and EPR climb, which is good. Passing the 208, We retract the slats. Slats go up. And at this point, around 220, we can activate VNAV. And here we have everything we need. FMS EPR, flight level 100, nav track and VNAV climb. You see it's pitching down and it's accelerating. So at this point we can finish the cleanup. So we can disarm the spoiler. We can switch the auto brake to off and disarmed. We can turn all the lights off. We don't need them anymore. The auxiliary trans and auxiliary over here can go off, both. Pressurization is good, it's pressurizing. Engine sync, oh sorry, the start engine goes to off, and then the engine sync selection here goes to N1 and it synchronizes the two engines. Passing the transition level here, transition altitude, we can set altimeters to standard, 2992. We're now doing 250, so this orange bag is what the FMS is commanding. So the FMS is commanding 250 below 10,000. We can set the altitude now to 29,000, which is our cruise altitude, and let it go. We can do now our climb checklist. Climb checklist over here, altimeters 1013 standard, thrust rating, climb and ART auto, spoilers disarmed, cabin pressure and aircon all set, the aircon is going and the temperature is 20 degrees, beautiful. Fuel pumps are set, there's no fuel in the center tank, so those stay off. Engine sync N1, hydraulics pumps set, flaps takeoff selector is stow, auto brakes are off, external lights are set off, ignition is off, and we passed 10,000 feet. It commanded 290, you can see it pitched down to the last acceleration. Then seatbelt switch, we just passed 10,000, so we can put them to auto. Checklist complete. And we climb it. Let's see when we expect our top of descent. Okay, top of descent is 160. You can see here on the screen, the 160 miles from now. So, in the meantime, I will maybe show you some vertical modes of the autopilot. Now there we are. The autopilot can be a little bit complicated to understand at the beginning, coming from other planes, but once you get into it, it all makes sense. As usual, very important that whatever you do over here, don't just look at the buttons, but look at this. This is what the autopilot is doing. No matter, it doesn't really matter what you press there. If it doesn't become active here, it doesn't have any validity. So a little bit like the Airbus, even when you scroll the knobs, they tell you to look at the FMA here, no, because you have the digits here, but you need to confirm that every pressure of a button then equates to a mode changing here. So for example, at the moment we're climbing in a VNAV climb. We have other options. As we said, it's not advisable to climb in vertical speed. It's better to climb in ES Mach. So for example, let's pretend we wanted to climb faster. ATC tells us to climb faster than we are. Best thing to do in this case is to select ES Mach and then control the speed as we did before. So in this case, like we're doing 290, we could press, in this case, ES. You can see it reverted to ES over here. And then we can reduce the speed and say let's climb at 270. And you can see from 2,000 feet per minute, we're now rocketing up at 4,000 feet per minute. And that's it. Then to revert back, you just press VNAV, and you have again VNAV climb and FMS EPR. There we are. We could decide to manage the speed for some sort of reason. another way to manage just the speed, but in this case it doesn't affect the vertical profile. So you might want to slow down but still keeping the same vertical profile instead of rocketing up. You can override over here. You can click Fms Override, and you can see here it comes Override 288, and at that point you can manipulate the speed. But you can see it's not pitching down. It's just manipulating the speed in that case. If you press it again, you go back into FMS EBR. If you click on Speed Select, there's a caveat there. You can again control the speed, but it reverts to vertical speed. Then it comes off of VNAV. So FMS Override stays in VNAV, and you can change the speed. If you click on Speed Select, it will come off VNAV and it will revert to vertical speed. To go back, you press VNAV and you have both modes going back into VNAV. And that's a little bit about the vertical portion. Now in terms of lateral navigation, we are in nav track over here. And now, very important, this is a bit tricky and a bit fiddly, the heading knob, but it's as simple as, it's a bit like Airbus, you pull and you push. Now to push, you hold, you click on it, and you move your mouse up. You can see the digits changed, because that's a heading hold function. You can see here, heading hold. So if you click and you push, so pull up, it goes into heading hold. There we go. To go back into nav, you click nav and you go into nav track. Whether if you pull it, so if you click it and drag it down, you are pulling it. And at that point, if we do that, we're going into heading select. And that's a different thing. So heading select, pulling, heading hold, pushing, and then nav, go back to nav track. So the difference is, if they commanded, ATC commanded a turn, you could do two things. You could push it to go in heading, and then scroll it. Or, let's finish this little turn. Or we could command pre-select the heading that they give us. So now we're 190. I say they select 170. We pre-select 170, and when we're ready to do the turn, we pull. And there we are. It all depends if you need to pre-select it and then activate it at a later stage or not. Anytime we just press nav and we go back to nav track. And that's for the lateral portion of the autopilot. That's it. A good habit, even though you can push and do heading hold, good habit is to try and synchronize the heading to where you're going. So if you have instructions, you can start from there directly. That's it. Something we do during the climb is we normally check our optimal cruise altitude. So we go onto the cruise page and check. It's telling us 340 is the optimal, and we will be cruising at 290. Now in this case, this happens because it's a short flight, so there's no point in going to 340 and descending after a minute. But on long flights, you want to make sure that you're as close as possible to the optimal altitude. Of course, always respecting the odd or even numbers according to where you're going. And that's it. That's one thing that you can check as you're going up. You can check as well the progress, the estimated fuel burn, and then we'll check the fuel again once we're in cruise. And that's all good. Now let's start preparing the chart. We don't need the charts for Genoa anymore. We can load Olbia. Oh, another fact. This plane has a registration Ice Mare because Olbia is in Costa Smeralda, which is the Riviera there, the coast called Costa Smeralda. So this probably was the first plane ever registered by Alisarda. Now, Olbia, let's get the charts. We said that we're going to do an arrival, what would you say was Corsi for Lima. Corsi for Lima. There we go. Might want to cut some of this. Then we'll take our approach, which is the ILS-23. Take our airport chart. And then our parking stands. There we are, so we can do a bit of preparation. Always check throwing out every now and then at the FMA just to make sure that you're in the mode you're supposed to be. Now we can check the FMS, checking that this has all been programmed correctly. So the first point of our arrival is Corsi, so let's scroll down to Corsi. It's over there. There's no restriction, no constraints there, so that's good. I'm gonna go then to 472, 474, 471, and Doga is the first point with a constraint. So we need to be between flight level 120 and 90, so it will be at 10.5, that's correct. Then Geknu, there's a speed constraint, which is there, 230, between 6,000 and 9,000. We're going to be at 7.5, so that's good. Xulnu, 230 at 5,400. Odogi, 220 at 5,000. That's correct. And then Echo Oscar 477 at 220 at 3,500. And then we're going down to MDEC at 3,000. Now, thing is, between MDEC and the next 1, 2, 3, 4 waypoints, 5, we're all at the same altitude. I want to cut a little bit. 500 feet, we can lose them. Let's try and take a big shortcut and go from Echo Oscar 477 directly to Echo Oscar 481. So what we do, we pick up Echo Oscar 481, which is where we need to go. Let's copy it into the scratch pad. We come back and we put it straight after 477 instead of MDEC. Let's try that. There we go. So at this point we're going straight from 477 to 481. You saw the light there, you heard a little warning. That's 750 feet from the altitude we set into the FGCP. We're doing 1,000 feet per minute, so there's no need to do anything. Normally when you hear that you want to, well, possibly quite late, you need to make sure that normally 1,000 feet to your assigned altitude. If you're climbing any faster than 1,000 feet per minute, then you engage vertical speed and you reduce down the speed. But it's doing that automatically. So just monitor that you're not leveling off too abruptly. Now, as I said, now we're slowing down to 210, so 210 knots by Echo Oscar 481, and then at Millis we're going to be again at 210. After that we have our arrival chart. Now we're now, stop that 1 second, we're now on the climb, so we have VNAV level, nav track and FMS Mach. Of course, because at this altitude above 27,000 feet, it's Mach that commands the speed. You can click on this one to switch between the two, and Mach is the one that commands the speed. If we go on to the cruise page, you can see because of the cost index we're targeting 743, which is what is selected here. top of descent in 77 miles. So yeah, about time now to configure. One thing we can do, we can reset the tilt of the radar over here, the weather radar, and increase to 40 miles so you can see further ahead what's happening. I don't know if this... No, I don't think this is modeled. Normally, if you tilt it down, you should start seeing ground returns, but I'm not entirely sure that's modeled. Now, if you take the TCAS over here, transponder, we select now below us, so we can see what's happening as we descend. And that's it. Now, many videos tell you, many tutorials tell you to select cruise on the EPR by now, but Delta says to keep climb, and it does make sense in a way, because if you select cruise, let's see where the EPR limit is 2.05. If you select cruise, it goes down to 193. So if you really needed power because you need to avoid traffic or anything, you would be limited if you were in cruise. So keeping it in climb doesn't change anything else. The engines don't burn more fuel, there's nothing else happening, but if you need power, you have it. So it might be because of that, but I don't know. The FCOM didn't say why, it just said do not switch to cruise mode, leave to incline mode during cruise. There we are. So we were checking our charts over here. So localizer, we first check the frequency here, 111.3, which we confirm onto the approach. So we're going to init ref approach phase over here. We have 111.3 and 233. This is already loaded because we entered the flight plan and the FMS knows where we're going. We have 2,440 meters. So based on this, we select two things. We select the auto brakes, which we're gonna do. This plane brakes a lot, and the reversers are crazy. It's like hitting a brick wall. So a medium, I think, is going to be more than enough. And then we select the frequency. So 111.3. And the course is going to be 233. Let's pick up the 80s in the meantime. Or LIEO. It's going to be QNH 1005. Now, there's not much I can do with that. I just can scribble it down quickly, because normally you will set your standby instruments here, but they're all linked, so I cannot do that. So you preset it there while you're in cruise, so when you're descending you don't need to get your 80s again, you can just switch it to match what you read earlier. But we're not going to do that. Now, one good habit is, because we're not on VATSIM, and we don't need to wait for ATC or to have ATC telling us to descend, we can already set a lower altitude. The plane, of course, is in VNAV level, so it won't descend, but unlike the Airbus, this is technically a Boeing, so it does descend automatically when it reaches top of descent. It's a good habit to have already a lower altitude, so it will start the descent. Just not going to put a random lower altitude, we'll put the final intercept, which is 3,000 feet. So we're ready to go when it comes to it. Now let's check again the chart. So we said that the airport elevation is 3.7, we're going to be over the sea. So the MSA, we need to be careful because there's terrain to the west of the airport. So we need to make sure that we stay onto the track, onto the arrival track. Now, missed approach procedure. Proceed on track 233. So straight ahead, and then we climb to 5,000 over the VOR, which is directly after the runway there. Turn left a maximum 185 here as well on track 67, of course, for terrain avoidance. On heading of 67 until we intercept the 980 from the VOR Esmeralda. In this case, just in case we needed it, I'll pre-select it here as a reminder, so we don't need to read charts again. So 113.9 and 98 and the turn is 267 at the VOR, so we would have DME, and then we can intercept. That's all set. Now we're going to intercept at 3000. Intercept point is going to be Echo Oscar 411, which is 9.4 miles. We're going to be at 210 knots as we've seen, which is good, because again this plane, it slows down really well. Also the flaps are, I don't know what they built with, because I've never seen speeds like this. You can extend up to flaps 11 from 280 knots and flaps 15 at 240. So we're definitely going to be able to slow down from 210. So we'll plan to be between millis. Well, actually we'll be probably at flaps 1 already before that. Let's pick up our speed cards. Now we should be landing, what do we say, landing weight 57 tons. We are now at 57,700, so yeah, 57 tons. Let's say 58, just for a safety margin of, well, it's just a couple of knots of difference. Now this minimum slat, the clean. Yeah, clean speed 228. So from 228, we're going to be able to, yeah, we will select flaps 1 when we descend below 220. We select flaps 1, and then we'll select flaps 2 just before glide slope intercept over here. So we will intercept the glide slope with having set flaps 2. With flaps 1, we're not going to slow down, but flaps 11, sorry. You're unlikely to slow down effectively. We can select flaps 2, so flaps 15, sorry, and then we go down and we wait for the gear. We put gear down a lot closer, because that will really slow us down a lot. Okay, we have a plan. The glide slope is 3 degrees. It's a normal glide slope. The missed approach altitude is based on a climb gradient, so it's a bit of a special procedure here. Depends on the climb gradient you have. Now, with the weights we're going to be and the engines we're going to be that we have, we should definitely be able to achieve 5%. So that means that we would have a decision altitude here, an MD-80 of 390. If you had a less performant airplane, you will need to have a decision altitude, a higher decision altitude, because we're not able to clear this terrain. You need to make sure that you start your go around a lot earlier. So in this case, we are performant enough, so we select 370. I don't seem to have a barrow decision altitude here. No, not that I found. I found only a DH, but not an MDA. So what we select a DH, the radio altitude, which is 370, and we just pop it there. 370. Now we're about to intercept top of descent over there, 10 miles. If we want to do a more gentle descent instead of having to rush it, let's say, we can anticipate the descent a little bit by 5 to 10 miles. And we do that by going on to the descent page, onto the FMS, over here, descent, and we can just click descend now. There we go. You can see thrust is coming to idle, and we're starting to descend. In terms of fuel, we're good. We have 5 tons, so that's not a concern. There we go. As we descend, well, first let's finish what we're doing there. We set our minimum, well, our MDA, so this is DH in this case. Don't need anything there from there, anything else from there. We know we have 2,400. We've already set the auto brake to medium, and that is good. So we will land on runway 23 landing roll, we should be able to vacate by Delta, and then taxi back onto the terminal over here. And we're good, we have all set, we have our speed card ready to use. We're already picking up both the ILS and the VR. Strange. This plane normally pick up quite close. This is good. So we have 46 miles as the crow flies to the airport, and we have that long procedure. So we'll descend, we'll check in that the speed that the FMS is commanding for descent is set here, the orange bug again, so we are on speed, we're not over speeding. And that thanks as well to descending a little earlier. And this is the profile. You see the magenta circle? Means we are on profile. That's good. Next step, by 18,000 feet, we'll do our descent checklist. Check a few things there. If you were on cruise, which you shouldn't be, but if you decided to put it on cruise at this point, you will need to put the EPR back on climb. Now, automatically the bags have been set now. So when you get closer to destination airport, you have the bags. Now, bags have been set for clean speed. As you can see, this is 226, which is your clean speed 228. So below that, we want to start putting slats out. So the first step is slats out before flaps 11, which is this one, 0 flaps. This one with the backslash, it means 0 flaps and slats extended. So with flaps extended, slats extended, we can come down to a minimum of 176. So before that, we want to put flaps 11. We'll be able to put flaps 11 earlier around. We can put them around 200. We'll see how it goes. And then the second bag over here is flaps 15. So we have 149 over there and 149 over there. The other two bags are flaps 28 and then flaps 40 speed. So we have 142 and 138. We're going to land with flaps 28 is the standard. Go back onto the approach reference. 28 is the standard, 40 is you have a little less control of the plane because you're losing speed, so it's preferable not to use it unless it's a very, very short runway, but extremely short. This plane can literally land on a table mat. Now, wind correction, we need to put it now. The wind on arrival is 250 ahead, 22 knots, so it's pretty much straight down the runway, 22. If we're landing with the auto throttle, we put 5, but we're not because it's not modeled in this plane auto land. So we land without auto throttle, so the wind correction is going to be half of the headwind. Headwind is 22, we add 11. There we go. At this point the bags should have moved, and we have 146. Oh, they haven't moved. Okay, well, we know. We need to remember that it's going to be 146 final approach final approach speed. We're speeding up a little bit. FMS is commanding 280 and we're doing 300, so we can add a little notch of spoilers. There we go. 18,000 feet, descent checklist. Now, FMS is set ignition. Ground starting continuous, so this is a different kind of ignition. so we don't need that on the 88. Cabin pressure controller is set, everything is good. We set the altitude, and let's see the QNH on arrival. We said is 1005, which will be, yeah, I don't want to mess up with stuff here. It should be around there anyway, but the vital one is the landing altitude. Hydraulic pumps and pressure. What we can do now at this altitude, we can turn the engine sync off, and then we can turn the hydraulic pumps trans and aux on. At this point, hydraulic pumps and pressure is all set. Landing weight and data, we checked it, so we checked our speed card, and the checklist is complete. See, there's a lot of terrain. The airport is somewhere there. There it is. You can see lots of terrain around. Okay, we're back on speed. We can retract the spoilers. Set the seatbelts back to on. And that's it, we're good. We need to make sure we slow down below 250 before passing 10,000 feet. It doesn't level off automatically. It doesn't seem to level off automatically, like the 737 or the Airbus. Remember, the very handy thing is that if you were on a straight-in approach, not with all this very long procedure, and at 10,000 feet you found yourself fast, what you could do, you could level off. So you click Alt Hold and you level off at 10,000 feet to lose the exact speed. Let's say you were at 300, and once you're at 250, you can press VNAV and start your descent again. And at 250 you can already have flaps 1. So if you want to re-intercept, you would be high on profile at that point. And if you want to increase your rate of descent to catch back the profile, you could put your flaps 11. Sorry, too much Airbus flying, flaps 1, 2, and etc. You could put your flaps 11 already at 10,000 feet and then go down like a bullet. I see it's commanded, probably gonna have to do that. It's commanded 240, but to stay on profile, we're going quite fast now. So the next is Geknu. We're gonna be at 7,500. We need to lose 3,000 in 12 miles, which we should be able to do. We have an extra 3 miles. Let's see if it levels off automatically or not. I don't believe it does. Okay, it doesn't. So we'll click Alt Hold. We're going to Alt Hold speed, then make sure we wind down the speed because it stays at the speed you're at, so you would never slow down. Slow down to 240. To lose 2,500, we still have at 8 miles. Can put a little bit of speed brake. Then we can activate VNAV again once we're below 250. 250, VNAV, FMS speed, nav track, VNAV descent. Now the altitude needs to be taken down again and reactivated, because when we press hold, it was selected there and over here as well. And we're quite good anyway because we're losing some altitude. The QNH is 1005, so we will be losing a little bit by setting that. Let's pretend we've been cleared to an altitude, so we can select 1005. There we are. I'm double checking that 80 hasn't changed. No, 1005.
Dairy and other food products must be declared and cleared by customs officials if this is your final destination.
Cabin announcements are from the FMod pack over here. Now we're at transition level. Oh, we're doing 260. Ah, no, that's 250. We're good. Now, transition level, we do approach checklist. The cabin signs on, fuel supply, pumps and heat as they should be. Engine sync is off and we turned it off earlier. Cabin pressure is checked and good. Cruise stations checked. Checklist completed to transition level. No smoking off and on to ping the cabin crew. 10 minutes from landing. Okay, speed brake, spoilers retracted. It's now commanding 230. The next waypoint is going to be Odoogie. Odoogie, where we'll slow down to 220. We are on profile. We're looking good. Now to lighten the workload a little bit, we'll put the lights on now. This plane, like the Airbus, lights that come out of the wing, so they do generate drag. There's no legal requirement, unlike the States. There's no legal requirement to turn on your lights below 10,000. You can turn them on as late as your final approach. So by delaying a little bit, we save a little bit of fuel because of the drag. Now it's commanding 220 by Odoogie, which is in 3.4 miles, so very good there. In the meantime, we check that we've done everything as we should have. The auto brakes are there, the ILS is selected, the course is correct. Seatbelts are on, the lights are on, and everything is on. I put the nose lights to dim instead of bright, just to remind myself that I haven't received landing clearance. And when I get clear to land, then I'll put them to bright. If I don't forget, that is. Now at this point, close to the arrival, we can already select ignition to A or B to make sure that's on. So our clean speed was here 228, we're doing 220. Now we'll command 210 for the next point. And as soon as it does that, we'll put flaps 11. Especially that we're in a turn, so we want to have, we're below the clean speed for only slats. So as we're going around the turn, we want to have those flaps out. There we go. Flaps down one notch. So now the slats are out. And the slats, we said that we were safe with the slats up to 176. See, with the slats it's a lot easier already to decelerate. We heard that warning. We have the orange light because we're approaching the 3,000 feet where we level off. Now we will intercept the glide slope after millis, so we're good. We have one segment, and then the second one will be the final one. From millis to Echo Oscar 411. Thinking that we might start going down with flaps 11. I think there's need for flaps 15 there. Rule of thumbs, I make a very easy rule of thumbs myself. I put they're around 200 feet at 10 miles, 200 knots at 10 miles, 180 knots and 8 miles, 160 knots at 6 miles. That makes it very easy. Now the DME is here 19.7, which is accurate to 200 feet. So here it shows 0.7. When it shows 0.7 is 0.5, so that's good enough. There's a bigger difference sometimes, it's just highlighted here as well. There we go, you can see the ILS here, it's alive. So we can activate ILS already. You can see here on the FMA, we'll have ILS activated. So as soon as you can intercept the localizer and the glide slope, it will do both automatically. There's no need to do VOR lock first and then ILS to get the glide slope. Just clicking ILS will activate both modes. Don't want to put any more flaps simply because it's a very long bit we need to fly at the same altitude, and I don't want to burn too much fuel to do that. Flaps 11 increase a lot the drag, and then the engine will need to spool up quite a lot. As you can see, probably we're pitching up quite a lot. Yeah. Okay, now we'll still be at 210. We can then start managing the speed ourselves. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go in Fms Override and start managing the speed. Wind down to 200. Go flaps 11. It's even a bit early actually, because we still have 3 miles. I could have done it at 1 mile. As you can see, you can hear the engines are filling up. To keep their speed, so we could have easily set flaps 11 at 1 mile from the final approach. Yeah, but it's okay. We're over the sea, we're not disturbing anybody. See the glide slope is approaching here. So we will intercept that automatically. We're already on lock track, so we capture the localizer and we set on the localizer. We're at 10 DME, 200 knots, so we're good. Getting onto the glide slope. Just checking if Autopilot does its job, and it's done it. Glide slope track. So we're now glide slope. At this point we can set missed approach altitude, 5,000 feet. we can arm the spoiler. And now we select 160. Then we go flaps 15. Speed count flaps 15. Minimum speed is 149. We can put that already. 150. Now we manage the speed. We're at 197 miles, a little fast, so we can decide to put down the gear now to slow down a bit faster. Gear down. 3 green. So the final speed we said it was recalculated, so it was 145. Maximum speed for flaps landing 28 is 200 knots, so we can potentially put them now already. We are at 5.6 miles, 160. We should be good. Let's pretend we've been cleared to land, so we can put the nose lights to bright. Select 145. We're approaching 150, so let's put landing flaps. Flaps 28. And we're good. We finish our checklist. Pro checklist, gear down and checked. Spoilers are armed and checked. Rudder light, that's not relevant here. Oh no, it could be this one. The rudder travel is again now restricted because we're in landing configuration. And auto brakes are set to medium and we arm them. You cannot arm them until you have flaps 28 or 40, so flaps landing, otherwise it reverts back. That's it. Now we keep coming down. We're at 145, approaching 1,000 feet. 1,000. We are stable, so we are on the glide slope, we're on the localizer, we're at approach speed, fully configured, so we are stable. We can land, otherwise we would go around. Now deactivate the auto throttle because I need to rematch it to the EPR. So I checked the EPR that it was before I deactivate it, then I deactivate it and rematch it. Deactivate the autopilot, and we're going in manual. Make sure that you bind your keys, because you need to press it twice to cancel the warning, otherwise you have the warnings that keep annoying you. A bit high. Was talking. Got distracted. Minimums, continue with visual.
200.
There we go. Shallow out a little bit. Around 700 feet at this speed. 700 feet per minute should be good.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20.
Flare.
10.
There we go. We're on. Reversers. Activate the reverser only when the nose gear is down. As I said, it's like a brick wall. Look at that. There we go. 80, 70, 70. We go reversers idle. Start manual braking. And once we slow down enough, we can stow the reverser. You see the reverser up when it's blue the lights here. Now I'm stowing them and they're gone. There we go, so we can go flaps up. Okay, retract the spoilers. There we go, landing lights off, nose light, we leave it to dim. Let's get the weather radar off, transponder to exponder. I've got ADC chatter from the sound pack. So at this point, these pneumatic feeds go on. Auto brakes off and disarmed. The ignition goes off. We're by the apron, so we can start the APU. We can do the after landing checklist. Auto brakes off, spoilers retracted, radar off. Wing heaters, we don't have them on this one. Ignition off, flap sensor lights up, retracted. And the APU is on, so after landing checklist complete. So you can see you do need between 35 and 40% and one to taxi. There we go, let's turn here. Nose lights off, so we don't blind anybody. This is just probably the mod they add-on being under power, because it's supposed to taxi happily on idle speed. There we go, and welcome to Olbia parking brake. There we go, now the APU is available, so we can put it on bus. Now that we're on APU, we can shut the engines off. There we go, bit of quiet. Seatbelts can come off. Hydraulic pumps, trans and auxiliary can come off. Ice protection. We didn't have anything, hot day, but turn off what we had. Light directors can come off. And now the engine is pulled down, so we can put the anti-collision off. Last bit, the transponder goes to 2000. And standby. Parking checklist. Parking brakes are on and checked. Seatbelt switch is off. Transponder is on standby. Ice protection is off. Fuel pumps. Oh, the fuel pumps. We forgot. Fuel pumps are off. High rest, they can stay on. Anti-collision lights is off. Pneumatic crossfeed is open. Air conditioner is required. I mean, it's not really needed. It's 13 degrees, but if you want the heating, then you can put the APU air on to keep the heating going. And we have lights retracted and off. Hydraulic pumps are set. Engine hydraulic quantities checked. Aircraft locked. FD are off. And checklist completed. Checklist completed. Lovely. That's it. That was all. A to B. It's been long. I'm sorry about the length as well of the cold and dark especially, but I thought doing it once properly then will allow you to do it a lot quicker. Doesn't need to take an hour. It can take as little as 20 minutes. Done properly, step by step, but once you know everything. And that's it. If you made it this far, I really, really, really thank you for following and bearing with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it will be useful somehow. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask on the comments. But for now, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.